Hello. It's been a while. Welcome back to the Coming Together podcast. This is Redwood, and been thinking a lot about Neptune going into Aries, and I had we were talking about conflict the other day, and I had a friend show me a couple of videos, and in one of the videos the person was basically kind of saying that if there's a conflict going on and that we don't do anything, that is an action. Basically, like avoidance is an action. And of course, my mind goes to Neptune in Aries. Avoidance is an action. No action is an action. And I think so Neptune into Aries, no action is action. It's an interesting thought and concept, and I've been thinking of it, I've thought for a long time, I really like the idea, like every dollar's a vote kind of thing. It's like, money's energy, like where do we spend that? What are we supporting? If money's energy is Aries' energy, action is energy. And so my sense is with Neptune going into Aries, we have the entire collective consciousness shifting towards more awareness around our actions. So coming from a period of 14 years has been Neptune in Pisces, if we haven't taken action or if we've avoided certain things, I think Neptune in Aries is going to really bring in to highlight places that we haven't acted that maybe we want to now. I think the other thing about it is I noticed for myself when I thought about this, I think there's a lot of individual responses to that concept of no action is action. And so I noticed how I can be hard on myself, and it brought up me thinking about, judgment towards my past of I should have acted, but I didn't. And that's just an individual response, I realize. And it doesn't necessarily mean that most people will look back at Neptune and Pisces and say we didn't act when we needed to act. But actually, I do believe that is going to be a phenomena in some regards. I think there's going to be a looking back and kind of questioning what else could we have done, but ultimately, where does that get us, right? So I think the ultimate, Neptune of Neptune and Aries is what are you going to do now that we are where we are? What is the choice in the action now? And no action is action doesn't mean that no action in quotes is a bad thing. Sometimes not taking action is the right action, and who is the deciding factor on that? Our own hearts, God, if you want to say that. From the outside, we could judge somebody else, but we're only here to hold ourselves accountable ultimately. And so Aries is a sign that correlates to the self. I am, it's possible that with Neptune and Aries that there will be an increased tide of this self-awareness and self-accountability, and even just kind of that tuning into what actions do I want to take, potentially feeling more called towards action. So I think, I definitely think, we're going to see a rise in grassroots activism. I think Pluto and Aquarius, in its revolutionary sense, we can see that correlating to grassroots movements, and Aries as a sign of action. There's action and activism. That's basically the definition of it, that there's some action going on. So, and that, that they're forming this sextile between Aquarius and Aries, Pluto and Neptune. And so, and that, that is a waxing sextile. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to establish, some new grassroots activism. You're going to see a lot of movements arise. Another thing about Neptune in Aries, in EA, evolutionary astrology, as we say EA, Neptune correlates with the phenomena of consciousness itself, and Aries correlates to that which is emerging, coming forth. We could say Aries is I am. I think that from an EA slant, yes, there's truth in that, and saying I am becoming. We differentiate the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sag. They all have this sense of special purpose or destiny. And when you look at that between Aries and Leo, Aries is in the process of discovering what that is, where Leo, in a sense, is full of it, that awareness of what purpose is, and it's more about the will to do it. But Aries is becoming. Aries is a process of self-discovery. So, it's a very interesting, I guess, for me, when I think about, one of the things I'm really interested about Neptune going into Aries is the relational difference in comparing it to the last 14 years of Neptune in Pisces. Because, and I've said this before, but I'll just say it again, it's like we don't have perspective. Because if you look at Neptune in Aquarius, and then you compared it to Neptune in Pisces era that we're just wrapping up, it's hard to compare because we're at this point globally and technologically where our entire lives and experience of life and reality on the daily has changed, especially because of the technology. So all the things that we experienced with Neptune and Pisces, having this little device that we can just watch any video that we can imagine we want to see on at any time, look up anything that we want to, message anybody instantly, that, like this reality that we're in that's now normal, was all, came into existence with Neptune and Pisces. And I think that there's a lot of positive, beautiful things about Neptune and Pisces, of course, with potentiality of, becoming more conscious, becoming more connected with source or spirit, becoming like I think like in a more mundane sense, the like fantasy becoming reality, or like even like virtual reality, it's very Neptune and Pisces, or like anything that humans as creators want to imagine, we can create to look totally real in video. We can have appearances and illusions of anything we have dreamt or imagined, and have it look real, so to speak. So there's this whole piece of like fantasy becoming reality with Neptune and Pisces, and like, I mean, I'm sure we could spend a lot of time digging into a music that came out with Neptune and Pisces and some of the qualities of that. Creativity, the music, poetry, obviously video, the evolution of gaming, like all these things that evolved so much with Neptune and Pisces that have, in a sense, kind of captivated us, have taken our attention, our consciousness. It's like our consciousness maybe has even gone more towards the dream, the fantasy, and the illusion than what's real, maybe. Well, we do know that, like the fentanyl and opioid crisis with Neptune and Pisces, like people turning to alcohol during COVID, for example, or just checking out of life because the stress of the world and life's been hard. So there's a lot of that. That's the, let's just call it the negative side or shadow side of Neptune in Pisces. Maybe like the destructive side, the disillusionment and the disassociation, the checking out from society and reality, and having these things like Neptune was in Pisces. We also had Chiron transit Pisces, and when Chiron was in Pisces, I had the thought, which seemed so obvious at the time, but in the moment I thought, the wound, the Chiron wound of separation from Pisces, from source, from spirit, from being held in unconditional love. This idea that understanding, teaching, like that coming from soul into body, like leaving a greater awareness of the unity and connectedness, and a place of a greater consciousness of participation and acceptance of the finite temporary dramas within the human life, and the potential to be swimming in this ocean of consciousness, of love. That's our birthright, that's our source, that's where we came from. And the wound of not having that, like we want to go back to that, like this idea that, part of us wants to go back to, being in our mother's womb and in a sack of warm fluid, and, being held and cared for. Not that everyone had an amazing experience, in utero, and a lot of souls have really hard experience right out of the gate, right out of the birth canal, but you get the idea, right? That we have that wound, that we just all want to be held and loved, and I saw this book recently, and it was all about vitamin T, touch as a vitamin. It was hilarious. But yeah, that Piscean state. So yes, this whole concept that all these things we're doing that don't directly get us there are kind of like, like I kind of think of it as like in nursing us along, or like we want some salve to soothe the pain. We want something to get through the next day or period. We want something to bring us back to that state, whether it's temporary or not. Or we want some activity to just avoid facing the pain, or ourselves, or the emptiness, right? And so, I mean, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but I say all this to say that Neptune in Pisces, I wonder how much we'll look back at this period relative to Neptune in Aries, and I don't know, like think about it or conceive of it in terms of Aries qualities, like where we put our action now. Like Aries is ready to go ASAP, ready for action, and like are we kind of metaphorically going from this place of like floating like a little particle on the currents in the ocean and then now we're emerging from that and we're just like, this is what I need to do. I'm gonna do it. How will we look back on that period? And I think the technology thing I think is significant because, like I was saying, is like we only have the Neptune in Pisces chapter to look at having this technology. So I do think in terms of like going back to just that concept of Neptune and Aries in a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to be a long-standing sextile. Of course, Uranus is going to do the whole trine thing for a while from Gemini. That's going to accelerate it all. Grassroots activism. We may see things like social media that a lot of times we feel like we're just going there as an escape or to feel good or doom scrolling or whatever reason. Like I have heard many people say that they spend way more time than they should, quote unquote. So it's this common phenomena that a lot of people will fill up their time with something on our little devices. And this is during the Neptune and Pisces era. So that is my question. How will that differ with Neptune and Aries? How will our relationship to social media change? I would say, I think that there's going to be a lot more grassroots activism happening through social media. Now, if social media attempts to control the people's ability to do this, then I think we'll see other platforms come up, so that'll be interesting. I think, that might be, I don't know if I have much more to say about it right now. I'll just do a little check-in. I think I will say that I'm a lot more excited about Neptune and Aries now that, I think it's March 30th that we go in. So we're really close. And I say that because initially, going back over a year earlier, and I would look ahead to it, I guess I became a little like nervous and fearful because of this concept of like, oh great, like Aries is just going to permeate the collective consciousness, so like people are going to be even more amped towards like conflict and aggression and war. Like we don't need more of this, we don't need more violence in the world. But I live in the United States, and according to what is being posted, at least they're saying that President Trump won the vote, and the popular vote, on less votes than what he lost on last time. And but we have like a third of the population that's not participating. And so I think that for things, it's like I think that when you look at an individual and you say, what's it going to take for you to change your lifestyle and your habit, because do you see where this is going? And you realize, maybe this is yourself, like you realize that it wasn't until I really reached this point of crisis that I was kind of quote unquote forced to change. And then I only did it like halfway anyway. I still tried to like go back and do the things that I wanted to do. And so collectively, I think that's kind of the thing, is looking at where we're at now and what we're experiencing, and this question of like how quote unquote bad will things have to get before there is a growing majority that wants to make a change that is for the greater good of all humans and life on the planet. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think we're there yet, because and I think that the Neptune and Pisces chapter for me is interesting to think about the 1/3 checkout, and maybe it's probably more, it's like majority or something, right? So yeah, I think now it's like I know that a lot of the Aries type of aggression might come to the forefront more, but I'm really think like it's funny because I was thinking the other day about how like woke has become this like whole thing that gets I guess like made fun of by the right, like calling people too woke, or I don't know, whatever people say. But I think that the shift from Neptune and Pisces into Neptune in Aries is a bit of like an awakening of consciousness. And so in a sense, this is somebody has this podcast, I think it's called like Wake the Flock Up. I think that's all like what do you call it, like precursors or like foreshadowing, of this greater awakening of the needed action that we're going to start to see. Yeah, I had I guess I'll say this other thing was I had a chance to hang out with Olympia local astrologer Rosie Finn. She's an amazing astrologer, and I met her when I moved to Olympia in the year 2000. And she just has a book out, Persephone's Revolution, I think it's called. And I can't remember if I probably already shared this with you, but it's worth saying again that she's been studying all the periods in history where Pluto's been at extreme declinations, out of bounds, and found that these periods correlate with the greatest times of the revolution and people reclaiming power from like the pyramid of oligarchy, hierarchy, plutocracy, and like one of like the periods that represented for her that really kicks in was like, I think it was like 2028 or something, 2027, 2028. And so that was kind of like a thing of where astrology has hope for us to be like, you know, we are heading towards some change, actually, even though we're going to be seeing a lot of hardship along the way and through the journey. But then in this conversation, I was explaining that I also had picked out the exact same time period as what I call the Great Acceleration, this period of the most change that and revolution that we might see and feel in our lifetimes, especially 2028, because of Uranus conjuncting its north node in Gemini, forming a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, with Neptune at the midpoint between them in Aries. And so there's a lot going on there. And I will say, just as a recap, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn on their south nodes is what started the pandemic and the global cultural shift that resulted from that. And as much as I really value and study the planetary nodes, if you don't, I think that if you were going to take the most potent kernel of planetary nodes, is to consider when a planet conjuncts its own node. And for those, I use the heliocentric. And so Uranus's conjunction of its own north node is very significant. And I would argue, especially because Pluto's in Aquarius and it's forming a trine to Pluto, that we might be as significant as the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in late Capricorn conjunct their south nodes. The nature of it will be drastically different, but level of significance, yeah, very much so. So when Rosie and I compared notes, I had this aha moment, because I was like, oh my gosh, we're saying the same thing with astrology, but we're looking at entirely different things. But we both have, like decades of study. So I was like, this is really interesting. And that made me go back to another thing, which I guess I always had, it's stuck in my head as the rule of three. And it's this whole concept where you can use it natally, or you can use it by looking at current astrology. Like, let's say somebody's got a Venus, Saturn, something in their progress chart. and then they have a Saturn-Venus thing by transit, you know. Especially if there's like, I mean, that alone, like a double repeating theme is significant, but then if you have a third thing, also, it really just, it's just like so emphasized, right? So I think like Pluto in Aquarius alone is known for a period of revolution, but then Pluto in Aquarius, you know, with Uranus and Gemini on the north node of Uranus, adds to that. And then here Rosie's saying, well, Pluto is out of bounds. This is also correlates with that. So what I'm saying is we've got three very significant things that all point towards the same thing. And to loop this back to Neptune in Aries, I think that we are now seeing the lead up to this, in these 3 years leading up to it, with the start of this Neptune in Aries, is like, it's actually like a shift in all consciousness on the planet and the collective consciousness towards a time of action. And I don't really know exactly how that's going to play out or what that's going to mean, but I think it is going to correlate, like I said, you know, to a lot more people wanting to take action, for grassroots activism to be happening, a lot more engagement, and then I think at the spiritual level of Neptune and Aries, I think like we really need to consider, you know, there's not necessarily this judgment around no action as a problem, but I think it's more, you know, like I was saying, each individual needs to tune in to themselves and be like, what are you called to do right now? Like, what are you inspired to start participating in? Or sometimes life, I call it life itself puts things on our plate, brings things to us, and those are clues, and then we have a choice of how we want to respond. Do you want to participate? Do you want to engage with this? Yes or no? Or why or why not? You know, what do you want to show up for, and why? So yeah. I guess I'll leave it at that. And yeah, it's been a while. Thanks for listening, I guess. I don't know why I would be thanking you, but I mean, if you listened, I hope you got something out of it, enjoyed it. Yeah, okay, bye.